Hi, I'm Jeff Walters, and welcome to The Minutes. And thanks for listening today. It's great to have you on The Minutes for the week of May the 13th, 2024. This is a City of Thunder Bay podcast. The Minutes takes a look at what happened at Thunder Bay City Council this past week. On this episode, we'll have a rundown of what happened at this week's City Council meeting and an interview with Kelvin Jankowski regarding the city's plan to move its fleet to electric vehicles. It's an expensive plan that will take nearly 2 decades to fulfill. We'll hear about that in just a few minutes. But first, Council approved its tax policy for 2024 on Monday night. The tax policy sets out how much each property will pay based on its assessment. Council went against administration's recommendation with tax ratios and adopted an amendment to accept the third option in a corporate report that will keep the tax ratios the same as last year. The rationale from Council was that the third option didn't shift any more tax burden onto the residential class. For a residential home, taxes will go up by 4.95% this year. Based on the median average home in Thunder Bay, the average tax bill will go up by $184.80 this year. Overall taxation growth was just under $1 million right across Thunder Bay. Council agreed to sign on with the provincial DriveON program. The program will be in use at the city's mechanical shops. DriveON will be used instead of the province's motor vehicle inspection stations. The change is so city mechanics can continue to provide annual safety inspections on the city's fleet and semi-annual inspections on buses. The change will impact 48 conventional buses, 27 specialized buses, and 85 heavy trucks, along with fire rescue vehicles. The change will take place later this year. There were many questions about a plan to transition Thunder Bay Transit and the municipal fleet to zero-emission vehicles on Monday. Council received the Zero Emissions Transition Plan as a first report. It highlighted the steps that would be taken to move buses and vehicles away from traditional fuel-burning vehicles to electric ones. The plan would run until 2050 and would cost about $74 million more than buying conventional vehicles over that time frame. It would take until 2044 to turn the fleet into a zero-emission one. The plan does not include the replacement of all city vehicles, such as ambulances, fire trucks, and some heavy machinery. Some of that equipment is not readily available in electric models. However, administration says it will keep an eye on these vehicles and see when they could be introduced into the fleet. It is projected that the city's operations and maintenance costs will go down by more than a third if non-emission vehicles are introduced to the fleet. The switch would save about 78,000 tons of greenhouse gases by 2050, with most of that reduction coming from the transit fleet. The city has already received about $24 million in federal and provincial funding to do upgrades to the transit garage, and install new hydro transformers and charging stations, and buy some new vehicles. Other government funding should also be available in the future. The report will come back to Council for debate on July the 15th. We'll hear more about this plan when Kelvin Jankowski, the manager of Capital Facilities Construction, joins me in just a couple of minutes. If you want to go to Marina Park in Prince Arthur's Landing this summer, you will need to pay for parking. Earlier this year, Council approved paid parking at the Waterfront at the price of $2 an hour or $3 an hour in the Market Square lot. There was opposition to this move, particularly from people who said they use the waterfront for walking on a daily basis. Council approved 2 new parking passes for the waterfront. One allows for parking at the marina for up to 4 hours per day. The other allows for parking all day at the marina. The prices are $80 and $140 respectively. The passes would be good until the end of this calendar year. Now, TIG users will be given passes without charge for Tuesday evening and Thursday mornings. A report says this is in recognition of the equal partnership with the city building the TIG Park, along with the Penghu TIG Tuan Association. Paid parking comes into effect at the waterfront for all vehicles on June 1st. Council referred a resolution back to the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee, which asked for a measured approach when it comes to transition from fossil fuels to clean energy. The request comes after Enbridge, the natural gas company, made a presentation to the committee. The presentation highlighted how gas will still play a role in the province's energy needs for a number of years. The referral back to the committee asked for more information, which will then be represented to Council once again. Council approved a resolution on Monday from the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee asking Council to support new rules that would make sure municipally elected representatives, such as the mayor and councillors, would be held to the same standard as other workers in Ontario when it comes to treating each other with respect. The request comes after a group called Women of Ontario Say No was formed. It's in response to the conduct of a city councillor in Ottawa. A copy of the passed resolution will be sent to the provincial government. Council attended the annual general meeting for Synergy North on Monday night. The AGM is a legal requirement, as the city is the majority shareholder of the utility. At the AGM, as shareholders, Council approved the chair of the Synergy North board, accepted the audited financial statements, and appointed the auditor. And finally, the Thunder Bay Common Bonds and Chaplain were recognized at last night's council meeting with a Citizens of Exceptional Achievement Award. The award was given to this group for its work supporting long-term care residents with St. Joseph's Care Group. The awards are handed to groups who volunteer in our community for a minimum of 10 years. And that's a wrap as to what happened at Council this week. For more information on anything that happens at Council, please visit our website, thunderbay.ca/council. There are more and more of them on the road, zero-emission vehicles, which are usually electric, on the roads of Thunder Bay and right across Canada. The city has 2 electric pickup trucks, but administration has plans to bring even more electric vehicles into the city's fleet. Kelvin Jankowski is the city's manager of Capital Facilities Construction. Kelvin, thanks for coming into the Minute Studio today.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
So we heard lots about electrical vehicles in the news for the city for the last couple of years now. Why is the city looking into more electric vehicles now?
So part of the near-term tactics of the net zero strategy was to look at a strategy for electrifying fleet vehicles. Right now, the impetus is on transit vehicles because that's the kind of funding strategy that we're getting from other levels of government. So we're focusing on that primarily, but also looking at municipal fleet as these vehicles become available for purchase.
And looking at transit buses, it seems like the majority of the emissions are from transit right now anyway.
That's correct. It's a rather large, I believe it's 48 active fleet, 60,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions per year. It's quite substantial, high percentage of what we're emitting. That's excluding emergency services.
Okay. So that's not including, would that be, I guess, police, fire, EMS?
That's correct.
Okay.
And those are also in the works in the background at some point. But again, those would be priority 2 vehicles.
So yeah, when you mentioned priority vehicles there, we're looking at transit and fleet vehicles. What are the kinds of vehicles, I guess, that we're looking at besides buses?
So priority 1 vehicles are basically vehicles that are already available in the market. They're competing in the market with internal combustion engine vehicles. That'd be pickup trucks of different various sizes, forklifts, ice resurfacers, things of that nature. The larger vehicles would be priority 2. We have a wait and see approach on those in terms of how the market develops for those. There are industry developments happening in the background, and we'll keep on top of those as they occur.
And would that be like garbage trucks, that sort of stuff?
Yes, garbage trucks, sweepers, loaders, construction vehicles, things of that nature.
So obviously, just knowing electric vehicles for looking for a pickup truck myself, which I'm not buying, by the way, because of the cost of any pickup truck right now. What are some of the costs involved in this?
So in terms of the cost of the transit vehicles, there's approximately, depending on what type you buy, about a 40% premium on the cost of the vehicle itself. Fortunately, that cost is through ISIP and through ZETF funding programs between 75 and 80% funded by those programs. Regarding priority 1 vehicles, depending on what you're purchasing, could be anywhere from 10 to 25%. Again, it's very variable depending on how saturated the market is or how many vehicles are being produced at the time.
So wide ranges of costs. What about on an overall level? What will this be costing the city in the long run?
So for the transit vehicles and the priority 1 vehicles, I believe it's somewhere around 74 million in additional costs. That's exclusive of third-party funding. So that would be 74 million, not including the federal, provincial funding that we may receive for capital and vehicle purchases.
And this isn't to be something absorbed in a year. This is a long-term plan.
Correct. That's over the course of the plan to I believe the final IC bus would be off the road in 2044.
And then what about savings? Are we going to see anything change when it comes to, well, obviously we're not going to be using fuel, but maintenance or anything like that?
Certainly, they project over the life that once the transit fleet is fully electric, that we're looking at approximately 30 to 35% savings in operations and maintenance costs. In the interim, while we're operating two separate fleets, electric and conventional, there's going to be additional costs. Those costs are built into the $74 million, however.
And then when we're talking about the costs of this, it's not just procuring the vehicles. What's some of the other things that we have to pay for to get an electrified fleet?
So certainly we're looking at increasing the electrical capacity of the transit building. We'll do that in 3 phases. The first phase will bring in a transformer as well as underground ducting for the other 2 phases. That will take care of the electrical requirements for the first phase of the transition. Concurrently, should the first phase be successful, we'll proceed to the next phase. And at that point, we'll bring in additional transformers, additional capacity, and then look at the potentiality of adding a bay onto the facility.
And you mentioned something there, which is phasing of this. Why are we doing this in phases and not just kind of going, full guns ablazing forward?
I think ultimately we're more balancing the risk versus reward. It's really about doing it in such a way that the impacts to City of Thunder Bay can be mitigated over time. Also, it gives us an opportunity to take advantage of advancements in the industry as they occur.
And, I think we haven't really touched on this yet, the environmental impact. What is the impact of going to a fully electric fleet?
Certainly for the priority one and the transit vehicles, we're looking at approximately 73,000 tons of greenhouse gas equivalent removals. It's equivalent to about 17,000 cars, I believe, off the road.
Yeah, so a fairly big impact.
Absolutely.
And then, what are some of the change, or I guess when, can we see some of these changes potentially coming to the fleet?
So right now we have funding in place for multiple transit vehicles as well. And that would be the conventional buses as well as paratransit vehicles. So we would be looking as soon as late 2024 or early 2025 to be procuring. The turnaround time on those vehicles is approximately 2 years. And so that 2-year time frame between procurement of the vehicles and getting the infrastructure into place into the transit building in order to charge those vehicles, that's our window.
Okay, so it's going to be a couple of years before we see an electric bus cruising down the road here.
Certainly. We're looking at 2026 sometime.
And then you were at council last night. This is a first report, so that means there's no, debate or anything like that. It's just about, questions for you. What were some of the things that you were asked last night?
So a few councillors asked about hybrid buses. We'll go into further detail on that, but a lot of the transit agencies adopted hybrid technology 10 years ago and have gone through that cycle and are now moving to full electric. There's a number of reasons for that, but TTC, for example, has purchased their last hybrids, and as of 2025, all of their purchases are going to be fully electric. The other question was asked about Made in Canada. ISIP and ZETF funding have those stipulations in terms of those. You're only eligible to get that funding if you have a certain Canadian component. And then, other questions were around going too fast or going too slow. We had some councillors talk about feeling like this was too fast and others going too slow. So hope to alleviate concerns on both sides in the follow-up meeting July 15th. Yeah,
so you bring this back to council on July the 15th. What kind of info do you bring them for that meeting that we haven't seen yet?
So we'll gather the questions that we've had thus far. We expect that there's going to be further questions coming from citizens, coming from councillors and the like, and we're hoping to inform council further on the reports before they make a decision.
Yeah, and it's at that 15th of July meeting that they'll make a decision at that point on what we're doing with the fleet.
That's correct. And now that we've had those plans in place, which were funded by ZETF, once we get those plans approved, then we can move forward to it, tapping into additional ZETF funding as a result of that approval.
Kelvin, I appreciate you coming in today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff. Take care.
Kelvin Jankowski is the manager of Capital Facilities Construction in Thunder Bay, and he joined me here in the Minutes studio. And a big thanks for listening to the Minutes this week. Of course, if you want more information about City Council, agendas, or minutes, visit thunderbay.ca/council. If you want to listen to past episodes or maybe provide some feedback, visit thunderbay.ca/theminutes. You can also find the Minutes wherever you get your podcasts. That includes Apple, Google, and Amazon podcasts, along with Spotify, plus our website as well. I'm Jeff Walters. Thanks for listening this week. We'll chat again in 2 weeks after the long weekend. Make it a great day.